I've been an online ESL tutor since 2018, helping thousands of students around the world learn English. And I have watched a mom waste thousands of dollars while her son's English stayed stagnant. I'm going to reveal 5 critical questions every parent must ask before beginning any ESL tutoring. And by the end, you'll know exactly how to choose the right tutor and the right program to not waste your own money and actually accelerate your child's learning. Let's get started. Number 1. So this first question isn't about the tutor at all. It's about your family. What is your actual goal for your child learning English? And I mean your real goal, not what you think you should say. There's not a wrong answer. A few years ago, I had a family in China who wanted their 8-year-old to improve his English with me, which sounds reasonable. That's kind of the goal of every student. And so we began basic grammar and sentence structure. A few months later, mom was frustrated, and it took a few back and forths to figure out what his real goal was. Well, it turns out the real goal for mom and the family was for him to just improve his conversational English so that he could better participate in online classes with American students. I was teaching him beginner English when he needed playground conversational skills. So here's what I've learned. There are basically 3 levels of English goals, and each one requires a completely different approach. Level 1 is like functional English. This is like asking for directions, ordering food for yourself at a restaurant, travel, not getting lost, being able to ask where the bathroom is. This takes maybe 6 months of kind of casual tutoring. Level 2 is academic English, studying at an American school, writing essays, understanding textbooks. This is more of a 2 to 3 year, more intensive commitment. And level 3 is life English. You want to understand slang, cultural nuances, professional English. Maybe you're moving to an English-speaking country or you're moving to America permanently. You need everything. This is a 5+ year commitment. Most parents think they need level 2 when really they need level 1, or they say they want level 1 when secretly they're hoping the tutor will get them level 3. And this mismatch wastes everyone's time and parents' money. So the solution here is to be brutally honest about your real goal. Your tutor can't create the right program for you if they don't really know what that is. The second question you need to ask yourself is this: how much time is our family really willing to commit to this? And here's the hard truth. The way that you answer this question really determines everything about what you decide on a tutor and the program. About a year ago, I had a mom tell me that she wanted her daughter reading beginner chapter books, and her daughter was barely making out letter sounds at the time. And then mom booked one 25-minute session per week. The difficult and honest conversation that needed to happen was me telling mom that that was unrealistic in the short term. So the question you need to ask yourself is this: is English tutoring more like ballet or more like math class? If it's like ballet, something that you'll drop if your student complains or your family schedule gets busy, that's totally fine. Just make sure you find a tutor that matches that level of commitment. And listen, if it's like ballet class, there is no judgment here. Considering that most American families do not prioritize a second language, I've never been less than impressed of my students for learning another language. So here's what different levels of commitment might actually look like in real life. Casual commitment might be 1 tutoring session a week, no outside practice or homework, progress in 12 to 18 months. You're looking for a fun, flexible tutor. Above a casual commitment, you have a serious commitment. This is where most of my tutoring students fall. We have classes 1 to 2 times per week. Their families support practice or homework outside of class time. We have progress in 6 to 12 months, and most of them are with me kind of for the long haul, a year plus. You need a tutor here who is structured and has clear curriculum options to change course once students learn something new or something new comes up. This is really the sweet spot for a lot of new learners. And then above a serious commitment would be intensive. These might look like daily lessons. The whole family's on board. English integration into the home. This is like for short-term progress in 3 to 6 months. For this, you really need a very intensive tutor. The biggest mistake that I see parents make here is choosing an intensive tutor if you have casual goals, or a casual tutor for serious goals, and that mismatch creates frustration for everyone, especially your child. The solution here is to be honest about what your family is able to sustain for months, maybe even years, not what you feel like you should have to do. Now, once we're clear on the commitment level, the third question is something most families never even think about, and that's how are we going to handle cultural communication barriers with a tutor, especially if your home culture is one that values saving face or being polite and the relationship with your tutor is entirely virtual. I've worked with hundreds, maybe even thousands of families from China and Korea, and I have worked with families whose children are struggling for months, and they never told me because they didn't want to come off as ungrateful or difficult to work with, and so their child just suffered because in their culture, you don't criticize the teacher. And from my perspective, I can't help their student not to struggle if I don't know that they're struggling. I can't address a problem if I don't know that there's a problem. And the absolute worst is when I am slightly mispronouncing my student's name and doing it for months, and my student will just let me, and the parents will just let me, and everyone will just let me until I hear someone in the family off camera correctly saying the child's name, and I catch it, and I will say, wait, how do you say your name correctly? And then they will say it kind of embarrassed and laughing, and everyone's kind of like, oh, teacher figured it out. They always will just let me mispronounce their name for months. Most of the time, this is simple cultural communication differences. If mom thinks it's rude to bring something up to the tutor, but tutor is completely oblivious, has no idea that there's a problem, how will you handle this with your tutor? A quality ESL tutor that you should be looking for should be really mindful of these cultural communication differences and language barriers sometimes. We shouldn't assume that just because our student in front of us is speaking and learning English that the rest of the family knows English. That's often not the case. I've taught many first-generation English learners in the family, which is so cool to me. Your family's ESL tutor or potential tutor should translate important information into your home language. They should make payment and scheduling processes as simple as possible for you too. And that's what you should expect from any ESL tutor working with international families. Here's what's really important to understand. American tutors are used to direct feedback. We want you to tell us when something isn't working. So what feels rude to you feels really helpful to us. And your child's progress depends on honest communication, even when it feels uncomfortable. So before you start with a new tutor, have this conversation. It could sound like, in my culture, we don't usually give feedback to tutors. Can you help me understand how you would like to receive feedback? And a good tutor will appreciate this and give you a safe way to communicate with them. Once you've established communication, the fourth question becomes crucial. The fourth question you need to ask yourself, and this one is really important, is what happens if my child doesn't enjoy their ESL classes? Are their classes negotiable or are they non-negotiable? The answer to this question is going to shape what kind of tutor and what kind of program you choose moving forward. I've seen two completely different scenarios play out many different times. So in scenario one, ESL classes are treated more like an elective. If the student says it's boring or they're just maybe not feeling it that day, the parents might communicate that their child is bored, or the parents might quit altogether. In scenario number two, ESL classes are treated more like math class, where it's non-negotiable, and even if the student doesn't love it, it's happening regardless. Neither approach is wrong. As a mom of four, there are classes for our family that fall into both categories too. Reading class, you don't have to love it, but you're going to practice reading no matter what. That's a non-negotiable. Drawing class, if we sign you up for drawing class, but 6 weeks in, turns out you don't love drawing class as much as we thought you would, let's stop paying for drawing class. Your child having fun is like the top priority. This is more like a hobby. You're kind of dipping your toe into it, and if they like it, they like it. If they don't, we'll move on to something else. Totally fine. Then you need a tutor who is fun, who's maybe game-based, and who's willing to pivot as soon as they sense that your child is losing interest. On the other hand, if learning English for your family is non-negotiable, that means it needs to happen regardless of your child's mood, then you need a tutor who can handle those difficult days in a different way. They've got strategies for motivation, they can handle the tears, and they can partner with you to make it through those challenging tutoring sessions. A terrible mismatch would be hiring a fun-only tutor when you actually need progress because you have exams coming up in 6 months, or if you hire a push-through tutor when this was just supposed to be something fun that your kid wanted to do on Tuesday nights. So just be honest, if after 2 weeks your child comes to you and says, I hate English class, do I have to go to class today? What will you say? That answer determines the tutor that you need and the conversations that you need to have up front. You can have this conversation with potential tutors. This is how our family handles resistance to learning. How do you typically work with families like ours? And finally, the fifth question that can save you so much frustration is, what specific results can you show me from students with similar goals? Notice that last part, it's super important. From students with similar goals. Here is the problem. I've seen parents hire tutors based on really impressive testimonials, but those students had nothing in common with their student. For example, if you have a 6-year-old and you just want your 6-year-old to gain conversation skills so that they can meet some friends who speak English and be able to hang out with them, and a potential tutor shows you really impressive results from a 14-year-old who gained a lot of skills and then passed English exams in high school, that's very impressive, but those are completely different skill sets and doesn't really have anything to do with your 6-year-old. Or if you're told about a student who went from beginner level English to intermediate level English, but that student had daily lessons, full family support, and outside homework, while you're planning one lesson per week with no outside homework, those results won't match because the situation doesn't match. So ask to see situations for students that match yours. If you just want conversational 5-year-old English, then ask about other students of theirs that were about 5 years old and gained conversational English. If you have a high schooler that needs test prep, then ask about other high schoolers that got test prep. And here's the other key question. What was that family's commitment level? Because if that kid had daily lessons while you're planning on weekly lessons, that kid's success is not going to predict your kid's success. A quality tutor with a lot of experience should be able to pull examples for you, organized by age, by goal, and by commitment level of the family. A red flag to look out for in an ESL tutor is one who overpromises. If someone tells you that your child who barely knows their letter sounds is going to be reading beginner chapter books independently in 2 weeks, unless they're moving in with you and your child is doing nothing else, it's not happening. That's a red flag. Walk away. Get away. Run away. These questions will save you from the expensive mistakes that I've watched parents make for over 7 years: wasted time, wasted money, frustrated kids, and stagnant results. So let's recap these 5 critical questions. The families who ask these questions up front are the ones who see real progress. 1. What's your actual goal for your child's English? 2. How much time can your family realistically commit? 3. How will you handle cultural communication barriers? 4. What happens if your child resists? And 5. And what results can the tutor show you that match your situation? If your family is looking for a private ESL tutor, one who understands all of these dynamics, has worked with thousands of other ESL families, and absolutely loves this space, I do have limited spots available for private tutoring, and my contact information is in the description below. But whether you work with me or another tutor, asking these 5 questions puts you ahead of 90% of the other families. Your child's English journey starts with getting clear on these fundamentals. If this video was helpful, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!